Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the last quarterfinal battle of the AoE 3 Noob Cup 2. This is going to be a fun one. I hope you enjoy it. There are also a lot of firsts with this series, so let's go ahead and dive right in. First of all, we have our last two contestants for the cup showing up here, and these are two players that we've not been introduced to before. In the green, we have Big Zander versus in the red, Hololive Great Inquisitor. Welcome guys, it's a pleasure to have you. Two contestants enter, but only one of you can take the last semifinal position in the tournament. Good luck, may the best contestant win. The second thing that we've got going for us that makes this a pretty exciting matchup, we have two civilizations that have rarely seen play in the tournament. In fact, when I first watched this game, I thought we hadn't seen either of them. In the red, Hololive is playing a classic civilization from AoE 3, the origin days, the Spanish. The Spanish are a great civilization, although a civ we've seen rarely in the cup. At first I didn't think we'd seen them at all, but then I remembered that KDA Valkyrie did use the Spanish in her battle against Greenstone. So, we have seen the Spanish once in the tournament, so this is a return for the Spanish. Their main feature, the main thing to be aware of with the Spanish, is that they earn their shipments faster. They gain XP more quickly than other civilizations, or more to the point, they don't require as much XP in order to send cards. So you're able to ship cards faster. That means, I think, it is particularly important to remember to use your cards as the Spanish. It is even more valuable to customize your deck as the Spanish. I don't think that decks are optional in AoE 3. I think everybody needs to be using decks, but the Spanish just take it to the next level, and so looking at the decks and the card gameplay will be very important for Hololive Great Inquisitor. Now, meanwhile, Zander is definitely playing a civilization we have not seen in the Noob Cup before, the Inca. The Inca, unlike the Spanish, are not an old school civ. In fact, they were introduced with the release of the definitive edition several years back. They're a pretty interesting civ. They don't often show up at the top of most professional tier lists, but tier lists are always going up and down, right? And the main thing is that level of technicality is really not that important at a Noob Cup level. We're just trying to understand the basics, and the Inca have a lot of really interesting things going for them. Most importantly is the Kamcha house. The Kamcha house is pretty cool. It costs a lot more wood than a typical house does. It costs 180 wood instead of the typical 100 wood. But, one, the Kamcha house supports 16 population instead of the typical house's 10. And then two, the Kamcha house also produces food. Now we can see right here, this is currently 0.6 food per second. Your average hunter is producing 0.92 food per second. So it's not quite as much as a Hunterville, like a single Hunterville. But, mejor que nada. I mean, this is more than you're otherwise getting out of a house. And so if you throw down enough houses over time, and you can upgrade these houses too, to get more food out of them. You can ship cards that just increase the food production rate of your Kamcha houses. And so you can really build quite an economy just out of your houses. We've seen that in different varieties from other civilizations like the Swedish and their torps. We've seen it from the Japanese and their shrines. In a way, we've seen it from the British and their manor houses. So the Kamcha house is another unique way of doing that. I'm also going to be keeping an eye on the Priestess, which is an interesting unit. It lets you convert units, kind of like an AoE 2 monk. So I'm really curious to see if we'll be getting any Priestess gameplay during this fight. Alright, both players have already teched up into the second age, but before we get there, I've got to highlight this. This is pretty cool. The last thing that is a first, and it's one of my favorite maps to play on, a crazy wild map whenever it shows up, we are on Budapest. there is a in this case it's frozen, a frozen river here in the middle of the map, and on both sides of the river, both players start the game with 2 town centers. And so that has to be blowing some minds here, as both players are struggling to figure out how to take advantage of both TCs. And if we take a look here, we've got Inquisitor doing a good job producing out of both TCs. That's pretty good. Zander, for his part, let's see. Yes. Yes, all right. So far, so good. Now I've got a highlight. Eco numbers right now looking pretty solid for Hololive. Which, by the way, I think Hololive might be like a clan name. So it may be Hololive Great Inquisitor. Maybe he wants to go by Inquisitor. I'm not sure. But I'm going to end up calling the red player Hololive throughout this tournament. So Hololive doing a very good job keeping eco production going, investing heavily into eco. Now, that could, in theory, if you go all in on eco, leave you vulnerable to raids. We've seen a lot of early rushes in this tournament. I think especially from, we've seen it from Ottoman players, we've seen it from French players. So this economic focus does have a potential downside if you're going all in eco and you're not prepared for the possibility of getting raided. But just sitting back, focusing on the eco, Hololive is doing a very good job booming those numbers up. Zander, for his part, looks like it's also building the eco, but not as quickly, and I'm wondering why. Let's look at the decks. All right, so Zander does have a 3 villager card in the first age, which has been sent. Doubles the effectiveness of llamas at the community plaza. Interesting. Okay. Oh, something else that the Inca get. Let me. They get a. I think it's a travois. Every time they tick up, they earn a free building, basically. You can use the travois to just pop down various buildings, like a barracks or I think it's called a war. You get a war hut, and then a noble's camp. And the noble's camp is kind of like the stables for the Inca civ. Okay, so we've got a couple of civs in the community plaza. I have had commenters ask about the community plaza, and I'm not the best Mesoamerican civ player, so I cannot really speak to the community plaza design with authority. The question is, though, like, when is the best time to build a community plaza, and how should you invest in it? You know, do you throw down the community plaza right away and try to get a bunch of people in it? Is that something that you save for the second or the third age? Do you maybe put in one vill initially, or do you maybe focus in on priestesses or healers, or even for the Inca llamas, and you put those units in and you let them do the community plaza-ing while your villagers focus in on the economy, right? I don't really have an answer to that, but that is a very good question worth looking up. And I think it's a question maybe in my back pocket that I need to research and look at someday. Figuring out what's the deal with the community plaza. When is the best time to, typically, in different game situations, when is the best time to jump on the community plaza? Alright, so a couple of houses, again, producing food. Mostly just coin, plumed archers. I don't know if they get a villager card in the second age, but that could be one reason why Zander's down. But, you know, we started talking about this several minutes ago, and he was at 20 villagers, and now he's still at 20 vills. So I think maybe part of what we're seeing is just, you know, he's all right, I'm at 20 vills. I'm kind of focused on other things I want to do. I'm trying to get up to the third age. I don't want to spend food, you know. Just trying to remember to keep producing vills, right? Hololive, meanwhile, up to 53 vills. And so I definitely think this is going to be a strength of this series, is Hololive does seem to have a better hold of keeping the villager production going. Part of that might be he's doing better with the zaniness of the Budapest double TC, but I think even if this were 1 TC, he's doing a good job building that eco. Ah, yes. Spanish Musketeer, Spanish Hussar. Oh, which, by the way, I forget. I have on, as we're watching this, the mod that I've highlighted before on this channel that just updates the look of Musketeer and Hussar to give them regional flavors. So in the mod here, these are the Spanish Musketeer and the Spanish Hussar, which is pretty cool. I think it gives the game a really neat extra layer of aesthetic. Historical aesthetic, I should say, which I really enjoy. Veteran Lancers, I don't know if they've been changed or not, but they're pretty cool. Yeah, so we see a build-up of military here. Lancers, Hussar, Musketeer versus Plumed Spearmen. Chasky. Huh. Chasky, looks like they're good against Treasure Guardians, and they build things. But maybe not the best military units on the field. And then Jungle Bowman. Okay. So I think these are good units. The Spearmen would do well against the cavalry. Especially we have Hussar and Lancers, which are both melee units. Now, the Lancer does anti-infantry damage. So the Lancer may actually do better against the Spearmen than your typical cav would. But I think the Plume Spearman is a good choice against cav, and then the Jungle Bowman is a light infantry unit that does poison damage. So actually a little bit of damage over time, or a dot, which is pretty cool. So I think that's a good combination, but you would need a lot more to deal with the numbers that I'm seeing Hololive pick up. We've got 10 skirms, 25 musketeer, 4 hussar, 5 lancers, and now 2 falconets on the field. Let's analyze Hololive's deck here. 2 cards in the first age, that tells me right away Hololive has a build. You know, if you've only got 1 or 2 cards in the first age, you know I'm not staying here long. I'm going into the next age. There are bigger fish I want to fry in other fields. So that indicates a build to me. So 3 Vil card, 4 Vil card, 5 Vil card. I think this partly explains that Vil advantage that Spain was able to take. Quite a few cards here that have not been picked up. House of Trastamara. Your next age up is cheaper and faster the more shipments you've received in your current age. That could be useful if you want to go up to age 4. Here we've got Marvelous Year, which is happening right now, so the Spanish Vils are working faster and better. 5 Lancers, heavy cav armed with a lance for killing infantry. Okay, so that's probably the 5 we're looking at right now. Here we go, fight. Oh. Oh. Yeah, and that's hard. This is a big ball of Spanish power. That's going to be very hard to stop. I like how the Treasure Guardians, jumped in to help the Inca there a little bit. But not really going to work out for them. Wakrapucara, Inca fortification. It's kind of making me think of Jaws. Darn it. It's this slow movie. It's because of the falconets. The falconets are so slow that everything else is moving slowly in formation with the falconets. But Zander, and this is the issue with having a smaller economy. You can, we've learned from previous sets in this tournament, the economy's not everything. If you have the bigger military power or the right composition, you overwhelm your enemy militarily, you can overwhelm a superior economy and win on the back of a weaker economy. That's not the problem. The problem is if you do lose your army, it is so much harder to rebuild that army, to replenish the army, to upgrade and improve it on the back of a weaker economy, right? That's the situation that Zander's in right now, where you're kind of having to respond to this now. You need to come up with units that can react to what Zander has in the field here. We see I'm sorry, not Zander, but Hololive. Hololive has 23 Lancers, 19 Skirms, and 25 Muskets, right? So, and again, 2 Falconets. So there's quite a variety of units, and Zander's got to come up with some sort of response for all of it, right? And he's got to do that, again, with only 24 Vills providing eco. Forget the Vill numbers for a second. Just look at the resources per minute. About 373, 396, let's say 400. 400, 293, 277. 450, 300, 300, okay? Let's look at Hololive. 1,400, 500, and 850. That right there tells you the story as to why there's a death ball here and why Zander's then struggling to respond, right? Which, again, I don't blame any player for being in that situation. The map is going to be wild. If with the Noob Cup, all maps are enabled. You never know what you're going to get. And this is the first, probably for both of these players, maybe their first ever tournament game, I'm guessing. Certainly their first game in this tournament. They have no idea what they're getting into. That they're worried about whatever kind of randomness the Noob Cup can throw at them. And you get hit with Budapest, 2 town centers. That is a hard ball to juggle. But even so, I mean, when we last talked ages ago, it was like 20 Vills, now 24 Vills. So, Zander, if you're coming back and watching this, I'd say that's probably one area where you can look at it and say, all right, where did this go wrong, or how can I improve or something? I think the Vill counts are a really big part of it. It's why he has the numbers he does. I wish I could say more about the uniqueness of the Inca. One thing that I did forget to mention, they have a unique trade post. They have the Tambo. The Tambo is an Inca trade post that supports 5 population and can shelter civilians inside. So you can garrison the Tambo, and gives it extra attack power, which is kind of nice. But I don't know a lot about the Inca army. I don't know what their most powerful units are. I think that Spain is playing this very effectively by diversifying the army. And in particular, I think Lancers are an amazing choice. Because Lancers, again, they're an anti-infantry cavalry, which is actually kind of rare for Cav. Heavy Cav don't really do that. Heavy Cav, like Hussar, are anti-skirmisher, anti-light infantry. But Lancers are just anti-infantry units. And again, that's pretty neat. And I think because most players in the Noob Cup, most players in AoE3 in general, prioritize infantry, Lancers are a really nice choice for the Spanish. Interesting that he's decided to stop the push. I think, even though this would maybe even be my critique for Hololive, because I'll go ahead and switch over to his view. You're winning. If you're paying attention to the score, you're winning. You don't want to let up on pressure. When you're winning, you want to develop that killer instinct and kind of get a sense of, here's an opportunity to go in and actually end this thing. And if you allow your opponent time to breathe, you are providing kind of a greater opportunity for there to be a miraculous play, or to get out that critical unit, or to hit you somewhere you don't expect. When you've got all of these numbers, and I know that we're speaking from that spectator point of view, you don't actually know what, you don't know the full detail of what he does or does not have, but this is a pretty good, you should probably be aware that you've got a pretty good chance of just being able to go in, fight this, wipe out this army. This is probably all he's got. If he's throwing this at you, that's everything. Beat it, and then take down the town center. Yeah, I don't know why we're running. Yeah, the TC. These units aren't doing a lot to you, and then the TC's not even firing at you right now. We are in the 4th age. Good stuff. So both of the cards have been sent, the factory cards. Where's the other factory? Ah, there it is. Factory 2. Going online. So we got both factories up. We have the Spanish square. Delivers 20 pikemen and improves pikeman armor. This is, by the way, another first for this series. These are the first games that we're casting since the most recent, the spring patch came out. So this is actually one of the new cards for the Spanish square. It now ships 20 pikemen and makes their armor much more effective. So I've heard some really interesting things from some of my Discord mates that have been checking out the game and say, wow, you know, this makes them a lot beefier and kind of a more threatening unit all around. So I'm excited to see it here.
Preparado. ¿Qué me ordena?
Yeah, 19 pikes. Now they've got 20 melee armor, 10 ranged armor, 51 siege attack. Something else that I would advise Hololive do is split up his units and get them doing different things. I mean, right now it seems like he's just grabbing the whole ball of his army and just moving it forward. But I think that's sort of slowing him down and also just not giving his army the flexibility that I think it needs. So, but now finally, all right, we're engaging onto the attack. Zander calls the GG. I appreciate that. Kind of recognizes there's really no coming back from this. Good game. Good round 1. All right. I would provide some commentary on that one, some like post-game commentary, but I think we can wrap that in with game 2. So let's go ahead and check out game 2. Okay, guys, here we are in game 2 of our last quarterfinal series, and boy, speaking of first, 2 more civilizations that we have not seen in the tournament so far. We have in the red Hololive Great Inquisitor playing as the Portuguese, one of my favorite civilizations in AoE3, versus in the blue Big Zander playing as the United States of America, my home country, being represented in AoE3. And this is actually a really big surprise because the USA was released not just, not just with the Definitive Edition, but after Definitive Edition release. The USA was the first DLC civilization for AoE 3, and I did not expect any of my Noob Cup players to even have access to any of the DLC. So USA, Mexico, the Italians, the Maltese, I would not expect to see them in the tournament. So my hat is off to both players, again, picking unique civilizations. It's really cool to see, and it gives us a lot to talk about as far as these civs go. Let me talk about the Portuguese first, because they are, again, one of my favorite civs, just a really interesting civ to play. And I gotta say, a civ that I think plays to Hololive's strengths based on what we've seen in the tournament so far. The main feature of the Portuguese is that every time they tech up to the next age, the Portuguese get access to another town center. So you can use that starting in age 2. You can boom up your economy to even greater numbers than I think any other civilization in the game. Even better than the British in the long run. Because the British boom just sort of relies on those manor houses, which eventually fall off. You can only build so many manor houses, and then you're done. But with the Portuguese, you get out that extra town center, and you're able to produce villas out of the TCs for the rest of the game. If you're able to manage multiple town centers, and we've seen that Hololive can do that, then right there in the Commerce Age, you're producing out 2 TCs. You keep both of those TCs alive, then in the Third Age, you're producing out of 3 TCs, and it keeps going. In the Imperial Age, a 4th TC. Each of those town centers normally costs 400 wood, but they're free for the Portuguese. So it's just an incredible, incredible bonus. Now, it's also a bonus that can, again, leave you vulnerable to raiding. And I mentioned in my last game, with Hololive's strategy, the potential weakness is in the rush. And Hololive needs to be aware of that because we have seen rush tactics from other Noob Cup players. So something to be aware of. But as it so happens, we find ourselves on a map that is very conducive to this sort of boom style strategy. This is Italy, where we have 2 bases surrounded by star forts. And that means that these units within the star fort are pretty safe, right? Now in the blue, well, by the way, the Portuguese also, they've got some interesting units. They have the caçador, or the caçador, which is a Portuguese skirmisher. If I remember correctly, a little bit less HP than a regular skirm, but extra range. So they are a very effective skirmisher unit if you play your cards right. You also have the organ gun, which is a really powerful artillery unit. Mows down infantry very effectively. But speaking of artillery that mows down infantry effectively, we've got to talk about blue civ, the United States of America, and boy, does the U.S. have quite a few moving parts that are worth talking about. We've got, where is he here? The General, which is the United States replacement for the Explorer. The General does a lot of similar things to the Explorer, but the big difference is the General can also plant down an inspiring flag. Plants down a United States flag, and any army units within the vicinity of that flag get different bonuses. And you can actually increase the boni of the flag if you tech into it correctly. I think by default it makes them fire faster, gives them an attack rate buff. But you can get things like more HP, you can get things like better attack damage values. Lots of different things that you can do with that flag. You can even buff your economy with the flag. If you pick the right cards, the right tech ups, that kind of thing. So there's a lot more fighting potential, I think, out of the General than you get out of your typical European Explorer. You also have, with the United States, quite a few deck cards and options that give you a very strong economy in the long run. So this is another civ. They don't have the multiple TC bonus that the Portuguese do, but the United States are another civ that gets stronger the longer the game goes on. Some civs, like the Spanish, actually, in our last game, are typically civs that are seen as rushing civs. They're stronger early. They maybe fall off a little bit later on. With the US, they're typically seen as a late game civ. And I think that the most recent patch have only further cemented that their strengths really come online as they go up through the ages. One of the ways in which they do that is their deck is very different than typical. You have first, second, third, and fourth ages, and you can only put down 21 cards in those 4 instead of the typical 25. But every time that you tech up to the next age, like here, US is going up to the next age, you have to pick a particular state. In this case, the United States is picking up Pennsylvania. And by picking Pennsylvania, you will get 2 more cards, 2 Pennsylvania cards in this top row. The Philadelphia Convention, which ships a meeting house and provides it with unique federal state improvements. So that's basically like a Capitol building that you get right in the second age with extra improvements, extra technologies. And the Tammany Festival, which ships a native embassy travois and allies you with the Cree. So this is a really good building. I think if you're going to go into whether you like to use the Cree or, again, more broadly, you want to go into native warriors, that's a really nice option as well. So, every time you pick up, you can kind of customize your deck as you go through the game by picking different states and realizing your game situation. So that's pretty cool. I think it gives the United States some strategic flexibility over the course of the game. Perfect for a tournament like this where you pick the civ, you don't know what kind of map you're getting into, you don't know what your matchup is. And once you're in that fight and you realize, hey, maybe I want this strategy or this game plan, I think that's just a really cool option for the United States. It also means, be aware of this, that for the U.S., you get your 2 factory cards when you take into the 4th age. I made this mistake. I was looking at creating my U.S. deck. I'm going, where are the factory cards? I can't find the factory cards. They're always there for you whenever you take up to the 4th age. So just be aware of that. Speaking of decks, while we're talking about decks, I am a little bit surprised. Pennsylvania is an interesting pickup. You get the Meeting House Wagon and the Tammany Festival cards, which I guess they're not bad. I'm actually not that... I don't know how useful the Kree are here, and I'm not sure what text you got of Philadelphia. My favorite pickups are... the favorite for me is Virginia, because I really enjoy getting the... I'm forgetting the name of it, but there's one card. You ship the card, and it gives you 2 shipments. So it just helps you get deeper into your deck. And because there are some really nice cards that I want to get advantage of quickly, I think that's a cool pick. See, this picked up Capitalism, which is really nice. That's going to give you a little trickle of coin for the rest of the game, as well as the Advanced Saloon, which is great, because those Advanced Saloons, not only do they let you recruit mercenaries, but saloons also generate coin for you. And I've just come to really appreciate, as I've gotten better at AoE3, the value of things like the church providing an extra trickle of resources, or the saloon generating an extra trickle of coin. Right? So that's really great. I really like that for Zander here. Now, before I flip over to Hololive's point of view, again, Zander is on 12 Vils at about the 9-minute mark. I know that the U.S. does not get a Vil shipment card, so you are going to be behind your opponent when playing as the U.S., but I don't think that we should be stuck at 12. The idle TC time is growing here. We don't see a number, but TC's not really doing anything, and that's a concern. So we flip over to Portugal. We have double the Vil count at 24. Part of that is because we've got double TCs and both of them are working. That's definitely part of the story, but another part of it's just going to be, Hololive has, he's on those town centers and making sure that they're continuing to work. Whereas for Zander, there is some idle TC time that is going to be slowing him down. Speaking of, Hololive going up to the 3rd age with the Exile Prince. And let's take a look at Hololive's deck. If you're going to place the Portuguese, I think that this card is a must-have, and it was recently buffed into a really nice spot with the patch, where I think they've got it in a nice location. It's not broken, it's not overpowered, but it is really solid, and it feels like a great card for the Portuguese. Feitorias. All of your town centers, which you're already getting for free, and you're hoping to get TCs down, across the map as you play the game. All of your town centers now slowly trickle resources. So even if you do forget to do something with the TC, or maybe you're being raided and your entire economy grinds to a halt, even then, your town centers are slowly generating food, wood, and coin. Now that's, let's see, 0.24 coin per second. So this 1 Vil is 0.66 coin. So, I'd say maybe a town center is a third of a Vil on coin. And it's probably a third of a Vil on wood. Let's find out. Yeah, 0.7 wood versus 0.24. Yeah, probably around about a third of a Vil on wood. And then 1.18 food, and that's probably with some tech ups. And then 0.5. So about half of a Vil on food. But again, you start adding in multiple TCs, they start cranking that up for you as you go through the ages, and it adds up. It's just extra economic strength and value. And because you don't get, kind of like the US, you do not get a card to ship villagers. As the Portuguese, this is your go-to Age 1 card. You want to use Feitoria. It's a beautiful card. Town Militia, great card if you are worried about being raided. So I think that's a really good choice. And not just because you can ship more Town Militia, but also your town centers do more damage. So if you do have to garrison them, they will repel invaders better. So I think, I've been mentioning to Hololive, sort of, be worried about rushes in the future. That's a good card to have in your deck if you are worried about a rush. Economic Theory just helps your vills gather more, gather faster. That's a good card to use. In Age 2, Advanced Arsenal, it's a really nice one, not shipped yet. Gunpowder Infantry. Okay, so kind of improving your Musketeer. All right, I like it. Treaty of Tordesillas provides your church with unique Portuguese improvements. Okay. I'm actually not that familiar with the Portuguese unique church card. I've been thinking about putting together, someone needs to do, if they haven't already, a little tiny mod that just adds to the description of the various unique church decks, just right here underneath it, what are the 3 texts in the church and what do they do, I would love to be able to see that just by hovering over Treaty of Tordesillas. What does that actually do in my church? We've got a covered wagon being shipped, which lets you put down another town center. Donatarios, increasing the town center build limit. Now you have to spend your wood, but that lets you put down even more town centers, since that means both more feitoria economy, right? And then also even more opportunity. You got 2,000 food in the bank, and you can churn out of these TCs even quicker more vills to just get that economy booming. So yeah, this is a very greedy economy play, and I think Hololive is maybe lucky that he's got a map like Arena where it's not that Zander couldn't rush. He could get an army and go and attack, and I think he could try to do some real damage, especially considering how much of the economy is being built outside of the fort by necessity. But it helps that you have these stone walls protecting these first 2 TCs. No doubt about it. Yeah, now we see the military starting to come. Caçadores coming in, so skirmishers, and it wouldn't surprise me to see dragoons. The Portuguese also have good dragoons, and the skirm-dragoon combo is very common because skirmishers and dragoons cover each other's weaknesses very well. Skirms are very good against light cav, like dragoons, as well as heavy infantry. And then the dragoons are good against all manner of cavalry and artillery. So, just a really good 1-2 combination there. See? Coming back over to Zander. We have a little bit of development on the economy front, 17 vills. I do like seeing the military coming out. One thing that is important is to recognize, to get an army out early. If you're attacked and you don't have anything on the field, that's going to hurt. We do see the United States Marines card coming in. Minutemen are upgraded to Marines. Marines no longer lose HP and they inflict more damage against buildings, ships, and artillery. So one other way that the U.S. is unique is that instead of their typical town militia, they get the Minutemen. And the Minutemen, you can ship them from your TC. I do believe they cost some resources, just like regular Minutemen. Regular militia. But the Minutemen, they stay on the field permanently. Oh, interesting. What's happening here? Okay, Zander's destroying part of his own wall to kind of get out. I don't know if... I think he maybe got stuck with the tower or just didn't... I don't know. Either way, got a little bit of an opening here in the wall. So you just want to be aware of that. And he's got out one of the most powerful units in the game. The Gatling gun. This is an incredible... It's so wild. If you've been a fan of Age of Empires 3 for a while, it's so wild to think back to units like the Rodolero or the Longbowman, and to have them in the same game as a Gatling gun. The Gatling gun is a wildly effective artillery unit, kind of like the Portuguese organ gun, but way better at absolutely shredding groups of infantry. And it's a favorite for U.S. players. It was nerfed, and I think nerfed by necessity with the most recent patch. Gatling guns were too good at mowing down everything. They have since become... I don't actually see a printout of their stats, which is a shame. But... that's weird. But... you know, they used to be very good at not only taking out their intended targets, infantry, but even cavalry. If you had enough Gatling guns, they could destroy their own counter, the cavalry, and you get to a point where you really couldn't do anything against enough Gatling guns. And so fortunately, they have received a pretty significant nerf to their ability to fight cavalry. And so now it doesn't feel like a one-size-fits-all weapon. You do need to, you know, you do need to be sort of aware of your enemy's composition, and the most powerful upgrade for the Gatling gun, which is a card called Coffee Mill Guns. It means that your Gatling guns never have to reload; they can just keep firing until the job is done. That's been moved from the 3rd age to the 4th age, so you have to wait until you're in age 4 to finally get your ultimate best possible Gatling guns, and I think that's a worthy option. And it encourages you to, again, for U.S. players, it encourages them to go into other options like their carbine cavalry, like their regulars,
I'm ready.
you know, sharpshooters. Kind of expands your roster some, which I think is a good thing. All right, now we see an arsenal up, and I want to go ahead and look at the deck here for Zander a little bit, because both players are taking their time, kind of building their economy, sitting back. So let's analyze. Indiana was the choice for the next state, and I don't really have a comment on that one way or the other. I'm not a U.S. expert. Now, Hololive says, I don't have units and also eco. Okay, now I don't know if I only have structures. You were playing as the Portuguese, my man. Now, I don't know. It's hard to tell because sometimes people don't value their own strength. But we certainly, from a spectator point of view, we can sit back and say, all right, U.S., you've got 23 vills. Portuguese has 62 vills, so almost like 3 times the amount of eco. Don't tell me, Hololive Great Inquisitor, that you don't have eco. Are you insane? Don't tell me you don't have army when you've got 13 dragoons, 20 cazadores, and 3 organ guns. Now again, it may be that he's thinking, you know, compared to others, maybe I don't have enough, but I don't know whether he's just being modest or whether there's a little bit of strategic deception going on here as he's telling Zander, no, me with an eco, me with an army, no, I wouldn't do that. I just have buildings. Now, he's got buildings, but no. This man has an economy. This man has an army. It would be a very interesting fight if these two were to start battling right now. This group versus this group. I think the U.S. could win that. But, again, what I'm concerned about are the eco values. Let's look at these numbers. 1,800, 450 for the Portuguese. 57. That number's going up. But let's even just say 200. 200, 400, 300. Right? That tells you everything you need to know right there. Is that if a battle's waged, the Portuguese are just going to be able to bounce back and send another volley. Go to round 2. Upgrade their army. You know, pick up these techs. Portugal now going into the 4th age. With another covered wagon entering the field. Wololo, I'm in your base, killing your dudes. Yeah. Now, where was I? Was talking about U.S. deck. One card that I'm really surprised to not see in the deck. I'm really surprised. If you're going to sit back, there are two cards I'm going to mention. If you're going to sit back and kind of just build your eco and I don't want to say hope you're not attacked, but you're going for kind of a more passive approach. I would love to see Chinese immigrants in the Age 1 slot. What that does is it sends a free TP rickshaw. So you could, like, right away, you can go and you can pick up a trading post for free. And then, as soon as that's done, your trading posts are able to levy for free another trade post rickshaw. So you can go down, you can collect one trade post, you could, you know, collect this House of Bourbon camp if you wanted to, and then you give it a little bit of time and you can levy it again. And, you know, if your opponent lets you, you just go around and claim the entire map. You know, the trade posts, the as I said, the trade post sites, the native camp sites. So you got some real options here, right? That's one card that I think is a lot of fun. I don't think it's necessary. I'm not saying every US deck needs that card, but I think that's a fun one, and I just one I like to highlight. I do also enjoy the German Immigrants card. That is a really good one. Long term, I think that's great. Being able to German Immigrants, the settler wagon, is one of the strongest economic units in the game. So being able to have access to that as the US is really nice, and that's why I think we've got a mill up over here. I would love to throw that down and be able to start actually producing settler wagons. The sheriff card, I don't, you know, there are cards in the game that improve your explorer, makes, you know, your general more valuable or whatever. I think you get access to the long-range carbine ability in the 4th Age anyway. I don't know how useful this is. What I would love to see in Age 2, you got long rifles, which is a really good one. I like that one a lot. Hamiltonian Economics is one of the coolest cards in the game, and I love seeing that in the US deck. Because what it does is it lets you get all the technologies out of your marketplace for free. And they've buffed it recently to where if you went ahead and bought some things from the market, from some of the techs, you get those costs refunded back to you. But that means that you can just go to your market and grab it all. You know, for any other civ, you've got to play this mind game of figuring out when is the best time to invest resources into making my food gathering better, my wood gathering better, my corn gathering better. And the answer is not just grab it all whenever you can. You've got to be very careful about investing resources at the right place and the right time to improve your overall economy. You don't want to forget your economy. Your game lives or dies on your economy, more often than not. But you don't want to pick them up right away, because that might mean you're killing momentum elsewhere. Or for the US, you just throw that card down, and then you can just grab it all. It gives you a really powerful economy. This is a star card for the US. Speaking of, US is in the 4th Age. We see that California was picked as the state, and there are the 2 factory wagons. You know what I'm surprised I do not see in the deck? And I think this would be a great one to send. Probably replace the sheriff card with this if I had to make that swap in H2. Is the Springfield Armory. That's another one of my all-time favorite cards for the US. It's a special armory that a special arsenal that is shipped to you, and it makes you research your armory technologies slowly out of the arsenal, much slower than normal, but completely for free. And so you can just sit back and collect all of these technologies, and it really helps give the United States a robust, technologically strong fight. And here we go. This is a massive battle. I'm gonna get some numbers here. We have 9 carbine cav, which are like dragoons, 3 state militia, 9 sharpshooters. They're all doing bonus damage to the dragoons. 34 Castador, which are musketeer, and they have the front line, so they are right in range, letting the Gatling guns put in work on the Castadors. Now, it is very important as the Gatling gun goes down. I was going to say, you wanted as much damage as possible for that gun, focusing in on the infantry. Meanwhile, Ribalds, which are upgrades to organ guns, so 3 upgraded Portuguese organ guns, also doing their work, and they're kind of a more archaic version of the Gatling gun. Same concept. Rapid fire, mowing down of infantry. A really solid pick. Portugal wins that fight, but is maybe backing up and trying to, again, keep the steamroll going. Kind of a wind-up punch, which I think is Hololive's style. So anyway, like I was saying, for the US, you ship that Springfield Armory, you're able to grab all of those technologies for free. It's a really incredible card. Hololive sharing some tips. Tip for USA, use more Gatlings in the card that brings like 3 of them. I agree with him in theory. I think one of the ways you can play the US is by massing up Gatling guns. And as a general rule of thumb, whenever you're playing artillery, early on, like when you first hit the Fortress Age, you can ship that 2 Falconet card and do a world of damage with just 2 Falconets. But eventually, you want to get to the place where numbers matter. Over time, you don't want to be stuck on 1 Falconet or 2 Falconets. You want to get to a place where you have a number of, whether that's Falconets or organ guns or even mortars, right? You want a lot of artillery, and Gatling guns are definitely an example of that. If you're going to go Gatling guns, you want to grab a whole bunch of them. They're way more effective in a group. So I think he's right about that. Now, I would caveat that advice by, again, recognizing Gatling guns were nerfed, with this most recent patch. Before the patch, you could do nothing but Gatling guns and basically be unstoppable. Unless your opponent went all in Culverin. And that would have been fairly easy for you to deal with if he did. But other than that, you just go all in Culverin and, other than that option, you go all in Gatling guns and you just win anything. And that may be the spirit of Hololive's advice is, yeah, if you play USA, just go all in, Gatling guns and win the game like that. And I don't know that that's actually, going to work for him necessarily in every game. Because, even in that fight, I think the Dragoons probably overwhelm a much larger mass of Gatling guns. Because guns now, the GGs, they do so much less damage to cavalry than they used to. So yeah, I think the Dragoons would win that fight, where maybe before the patch they would not. Alright, let's keep analyzing here. Back over to Portugal's deck. Okay, interesting. So just going, full TCs is the name of the deck. And yeah, this is just a very greedy, slow, economic play. Giving some incredible economic value. 2,000, 1,000, 1,500 versus 300, 500, 350. Right? So, just incredible economic power. Portugal doesn't even know what to do with all this food and this wood and this gold. So, if anything, that may even be some advice over to Hololive is to kind of be aware of this. This seems fun, but resources in your bank that aren't doing anything are wasted, right? So, that's something to kind of maybe be aware of. If there are opportunities, you're at 78 Vils, can you pop cap up to 100? Well, you're almost at limit right there. So I don't know if nothing else, you can get 10 more Vils out, go up to 88. Right? Are there techs you can grab? In the one thing you could do, I bet you haven't done this in the market. Pick up Mercantile Focus. It costs 2,000 gold and get you a bunch of experience, so you can ship more cards. Right? Just finding things to do with your resources, I think, is very important. And I get these numbers are probably just because of the amazing economy at this point, but just thinking about where you can grab things. Pick up these native camps. We haven't even talked about the native camps. This is a great venue for some of these resources. The European maps have incredible native camps. Not just because of the units, But look, just look at the text. We have Wittelsbach. Each unit you've trained so far refunds a tiny fraction of its cost to the stockpile. That's a cool one. Ships a number of Bavarian chevaux de guerre and equips them with lances to inflict bonus damage to infantry. Cool. Natives, outlaws, and mercenaries. Excuse me. They're cheaper and train faster. Very nice. Shoots and fists. Skirmishers gain more range, particularly mountain troopers. You are already one of the furthest ranging units with the Cazador. You pick up Shoots and Fest, that's incredible. That's a great pickup. We see another fight possibly breaking out here. I want to really quickly, let me grab House of Bourbon real quick. Have a background as we watch this fight break out. Carbine Cav, they're going to be putting work on the Dragoons. We have 2 Gatling guns this time. Dragoons really getting taken down by the sharpshooters. Something else that I think is maybe worthwhile is talking about the distinction between, for the American barracks, the sharpshooter versus the state militia. Because they're both skirmishers, skirmisher type units, light infantry. But the difference between them is the sharpshooter has a lot more range, and I think it actually hits a little bit harder. But the state militia has more HP. And so, if you're the type of player who wants to kind of just get right into the front line and fight your opponent nose to nose, right, which is how we've seen these battles play out, I would advise foregoing the sharpshooter, go more heavily into the state militia. I think that would be a better choice here. The sharpshooters are at their best if you're able to fire and run. Fire and run. You take a salvo and then you run away, you get distance, you come back, or you have some other unit that is keeping a distance for your sharpshooters, and they're able to just keep throwing lead from a distance. But if you're going to let the opponent kind of get up on you and get that fight into a closer situation, I think state militia is probably your better choice. That's something that, for me, that's been a very difficult thing to figure out which one to go for. And I don't consider myself a US pro, so maybe somebody in the comments will disagree with me. But that's my advice on kind of that dynamic. Now I want to keep talking native camps. We've got House of Bourbon, and why on earth? Alright, this is not right. Where are my unique texts here? Grants a Royal Horseman with all future shipments and enables them to recruit the Bourbon trading post. Alright, the Bourbons have an awful lot of text. I don't know why these are missing from our screen here. But we do get the Royal March. Temporarily causes your units to move faster, particularly the foot units. Here, I think earlier I missed. Alpine Horn. Spawns more mountain troopers the longer you wait and also reveals the location of all enemy buildings. This would be amazing if you picked up this native camp early, and then we've got a game that's, you know, taking 36 minutes and everyone's just sort of sitting around. This is like a time bomb in the background, you know. It's just better and better and better for you. This would be great to pop, you know, now and have 30 more units than you otherwise would. So I think it's Wittelsbach and Bourbon are the native camps on this one. So, yeah, don't forego the native camps. They have some incredible technologies, especially on these European maps. I think they've got some really nice ones. And if you're sitting on 15,000 food, 7,000 wood, 8,000 coin, right? You don't have a good reason not to go ahead and take advantage. Grape shot, really nice. Improves organ gun rate of fire and area damage. That's pretty good. Both factory cards are out. That's great. I like prioritize more often than not. Grab your factory cards first. Another one, the one that's in my own Portuguese deck, the Order of Avis. Dragoons have increased range and line of sight. I really love this composition. This is my favorite way of playing the ports. Combination of Dragoons and Cazadors. And so buffing up your dragoons by giving them increased range as well as line of sight, that's a really, really nice bonus, especially if you happen to... One of the things I love to do is revolt from Portugal into Brazil. And the reason why is because with the Brazilians, they automatically spawn revolutionaries out of their town centers. So as the Portuguese, you already have at least 4 TCs. In this case, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, at least 7 TCs. And sure enough, speak and they shall appear. Here are the Brazilians, right? So they're going to be constantly producing voluntario da patria. Sorry, my Latin came out. Voluntario. Voluntario da patria. So, revolutionaries constantly producing out of these TCs that are still, by the way, benefiting from fetorias. So, these are now like automatically generating army, economy. Portugal's wild, man. And it's just a really powerful move. But then also with Brazil, you get access to this Dragoon upgrade, upgrading them to Independence Dragoons, which just makes them even stronger, right? So if you add in Order of Ease and Guard of Honor, it's just your Dragoons become pretty awesome. And you already have amazing Caçador, which could be made even better with the native camp upgrade, Schützenfest, we already talked about that. And I would be scared if I was Zander. I mean, you know, aside from the obvious, we got that hole right there in the wall. I think you just walk right in and destroy your town center. And we do have a couple more TCs, but this is tough. I mean, I will say this. Zander has more eco than Portugal does right now. Now, thanks to fetorias, 500, 87, 430, 630, 350, 429. It's not as off as it otherwise would be. But yeah, this is if Zander had 10 Gatling guns, he might be able to just wipe this out right here. Maybe. But that's a very, very tall ask. Bear Flag Revolt called in for the United States. Villagers become Californios. So we have Revolt versus Revolt here. Where are our Californios? There we go. So Californios. Ranged cavalry with lasso ability, good against cavalry. It's kind of a dragoon. It's doing well against the Legion Dragoons. Look at these Portuguese units. They look pretty cool. The mod also affects the U.S. So we see the unique state militia. Yeah, but this is undoubtedly a win for Brazil. I mean, looking at the score, score does not mean everything, but when you see one player is up 4 times what the other one has, that's a pretty good sign. And yeah, Zander goes in and calls the GG. Well played to both of you, and guys, my hat is off to both of you. Zander, thanks so much for joining the tournament, putting yourself out there. It was really awesome, and I really loved having the Noob Cup. Hololive, well done. You clearly came into this, with a strategy. You kind of had a late game plan, and that late game came to fruition. I'm really excited to see how you fare moving on into the semifinals. It should be a lot of fun. Thank you guys both for playing. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed this game a lot. If you did, like the video, subscribe to the channel. This was our last quarterfinal series and the last game of the Noob Cup to feature 2 untested players. From here on out, we're only dealing with players who have won matches in the past. These are now players who have their eye on the prize. We've only got a couple more matches left until the final, and someone is declared Noob Cup champion. So buckle in. It's going to be a lot of fun these next set of games. If you like it, like the video, subscribe to the channel. For now, this is the Iron Kaiser signing off.